Wow, that was a fucking time. That was. All right. So, this podcast hopefully is successful because it was a journey to get here. And I'm not talking about the last like 4 months I spent trying to have the bravery to do this podcast. I mean, literally, it's taken 2 hours just to set up this podcast. So, big shout out to my homie, Caleb Fong, producer Caleb. He's here, and we have just been fixing all this shit for the last too long, too long. But, it wouldn't be us if I didn't just kind of wing this whole thing. But as I said, this project has been in the works for a while. I've had this idea for several months to just kind of branch off on my own. And for those of you who don't know me, first of all, I'm Kylie. Hello. I'm going to make a large assumption that if you're listening to this podcast in its first release month, you're probably just my friends. So thanks for being here. But if you are a stranger or you're finding this down the road, you might want to know a little bit about me. So I do have another podcast, and it is fitness and health oriented because that's what I do. I'm a fitness and health coach, but there is a lot more to me. And especially over the last year and a half, there's been a lot of huge changes in my life. And so I've been kind of on this journey of trying to find myself, I guess is the thing people say, and just kind of figure my shit out. And I've worn many hats, I've had many jobs, and I've had a lot of different life experiences. And most recently, those have been trying to navigate being single after my 5-year relationship ended. So I'm just gonna go out and say it. Dating right now in this era in your 30s is fucking awful. And I have honestly just like come to terms with that. And I've been trying to like grow through all these experiences. And so a lot of them have been just absolutely unhinged, just things happening to me. But I'm doing my best to also grow from all of those experiences. So that's kind of where the responsible side of this responsibly unhinged thing comes from. And I'm just really excited to share some of these stories with you guys, but also share what I've kind of learned along the way. So I don't want this to come across as like one of those podcasts or one of those things where it's just like, we're bashing men and we hate men. Like, I love men. I think they're stupid, but I love them. Um, and I'm gonna use pseudonyms for everybody. We're not in the business of naming names, but I've had a lot of anxiety and nervousness around putting this podcast together because we're not only going to talk about dating, but that is like a lot of where the content is going to come from. And I have been nervous. I've had people ask me, they're like, aren't you worried about those people hearing the podcast or those people hearing about it? And I have to kind of just shout out my girl T Swift because she said it best way back in the day. She said, you know, if boys don't want me to write bad things about them, they shouldn't do bad things. So that's kind of my take on that. And as far as the rest, like I said, I'm not here to just tear these people apart. You did the thing. If you did it, sorry, I'm going to talk about it. But I'm here to share because my main mission actually is wholesome. I want to try to help other women see the things I didn't see. I want to try to help other people grow through these experiences the way I'm trying to grow through them. And I also want them to just give themselves a little bit of grace and be able to look at this with a lighter approach. And I have to really shout out the podcast that kind of inspired me to do this is called Probably a Podcast. And I have just fallen in love with Shannon Ford, with her friend Anna Grace Newell, who actually Kara Goss, my other podcast co-host, and I got on our podcast last month. It was awesome. And I'm manifesting it right now. My goal for this podcast is to get Shannon Ford on here. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. But she went through a similar ordeal and she has a podcast that's very popular. And she kind of just came on and started talking about her experiences post her long term breakup. And it really helped me get through the last year with just so much more comedy and so much more excitement to kind of be like, okay, this sucks right now, but where can I find the joy in it? Where can I find the excitement in it? Like at some point, somebody's gonna want to marry me, and then like all of these hilarious stories are over. So that sucks. I mean, I'm sure I'll end up with someone that's funny too. So I'm not like super worried about not having any funny stories, but like I'm not gonna be talking to you all about the time that I accidentally stumbled across a micro penis or the first time I saw an uncircumcised penis, because I guess that's something they don't do in Canada. I don't really know. um I just totally made that up that those 2 things are correlated, by the way. Don't quote me, this is not an educational podcast. Uh, but, like, I've had a lot of weird things happen to me, and I can't wait to share all of those things with you. I can't wait to talk about it, and I can't wait to hopefully give you some insight because what it comes down to is I have felt often like I'm stuck in some sort of box. Like, I was a part of the health and fitness community for so long, like heavily into it. I was a bodybuilder. Before that, I was a power lifter. I'm still a coach. And I really struggled when I kind of started breaking out of those molds. And in a way, my life got turned upside down all at once. So I went through my breakup. 2 months later, I did my last competition. I decided to transition out of that. And then I'm still doing my business, but I've just felt called to do something else. And part of that is because of all these pains and traumas I went through that I'll definitely unload on you guys on this podcast because I unload my trauma on literally anyone who will listen. So that's actually my selfish reasoning behind this podcast is it just gives me a place to trauma dump with purpose. But I I basically was like struggling because I wanted to help other women through this. And so I started thinking about like what if I went into some kind of like healing coaching or like helping people through their breakups as like my career trajectory. And honestly, it just like didn't really align with me. And I think it's because so many people think that when you go through this, it's supposed to always be like this really dainty spiritual experience, which it is that. I don't even know if dainty is the right word. Um, like the meditation and we like go to yoga and we do breath work and we read self-help books and I've done all of those things and I'm doing all of those things, but sometimes sometimes your eat pray love journey looks a little bit more like drink cry fuck. So like that's just where I've been at, and now I'm getting a little bit more into like I don't know, eat, reflect, and grow. Like we do be eating, but I think that it's okay if it looks like that sometimes. It's okay if it's a little bit unhinged sometimes because healing is messy. Like love is messy. Sex is messy, both literally and figuratively. Like it's one of those things that not enough people are talking about. And that is why I fell in love with the other podcast I was talking about, is because it pushes boundaries, I think, for women to be not afraid to express themselves about these experiences. For us to be able to come and talk about when we're dating, when we're hooking up, like, ooh, sorry, we have one night stands too. It happens. Like those are things that I think society still has like an apprehension about, but the reality is I'm a 31-year-old woman and these are things that happen in your 30s. And I'm really excited to hopefully give other women a voice to not be afraid to share their experiences, to not be embarrassed if they're single and in their late 20s, to not be embarrassed if it's messy and if you keep falling for the wrong type of people over and over again because whew, I have experience with that. And I just want everyone here to feel like they have a really safe space. And so I hope that we can like grow this into a larger community. I hope that we can do something really cool with this. But mostly, I just hope that you laugh a little bit. This year has kind of been, like I said, all about finding myself and all those cliche things like taking my power back and just not being afraid to go for it, which like I said, this podcast is really my biggest symbol of that. And so I've been really grateful for the amount of people in my life who have pushed me to do this, who have told me they see this in alignment with me, who have been excited for me for this and really pushed me in this direction because it is scary. Like I've had immense anxiety all day today about recording this. And part of it is because hello, we are on YouTube. I'm recording this for video. And just showing up on camera even is intimidating. Like I was wanting to ask Caleb, like, do we get like Instagram filters for this? No? Okay. Um, and there's only so much we can do, and we've done all of it. You should see the setup in here. We've done it all that we can possibly do. But I am putting myself out here raw in front of you guys on camera, and I'm also really gonna just dive into, like I said, everything that I've been through. And I'm somebody that has always been a little bit vulnerable and open with people. However, I was scared to do this, and like I said, because it is a lot of like taboo topics, it is a lot of things that talking about them often can bring you like judgment from other people and kind of put you into, I don't know, a category. And I'm fully aware that, especially as this grows in the beginning, like I said, it's going to be full of my friends. And then the other half of my listeners is probably going to be people I went to college or high school with that just want to know what the fuck is wrong with me. So, what I have to say to all of you guys is thank you. Every time that you click on this, you help me with listens and views. So I don't really care if you're making fun of me, actually. And the reality is, so many people are scared to go after what they want because of judgment and because they're afraid people are going to talk shit about them. And honestly, that's just a projection of those people. And I had to kind of come to terms with the fact that I don't really care what they have to say about it. And I don't really care if my small town thinks that this is crazy, because I really believe in it. And I honestly think that for me, there's way more shame in being afraid to take a chance on something because it might fail or because someone might laugh at it than it is to have that happen. Like, I would rather do the thing and get made fun of than not ever try. So, all that to say is that people are probably like, no one actually gives a fuck. And so no one's making fun of you because we're not even listening. But we're going to go with that. This is just going to blow up and it's going to happen. I'm fully aware that my inspiration for this podcast has like 380,000 more people who were already paying attention to her before she started. But, you have to start somewhere. And that's kind of my goal here. So if you decide to stick along for the ride, I'm really excited to just give you all the content. And we're going to have a lot of stories. What's to come is, you know man, I just feel like I have to give some kind of foreshadowing. I already talked about micro penises. We've already talked about uncircumcised penises. We're going to talk about more than penises, I swear. But we're just starting off really strong with that. We're going to talk about how my TikTok ended my ex's relationship. That was interesting. Um, and how that created a friendship for me. So that was fun. That happened in the last year. We're gonna talk about. I have notes on my phone if you're watching this on YouTube. We're gonna talk about just like narcissism in general. We're gonna talk about drug addicts and why you shouldn't probably date them either. Like, there's really all the things here. We're gonna talk about how uh my other podcast that I love gave me advice not to date men with lion tattoos, and I didn't listen. And that also ended poorly. Like, I've had a lot going on. What happens when you go out with a group of where the fuck were they even from? Canadian rugby players, I think. That was a weird time. Like, that was an accident. Like, lots of weird things have happened to me in the last year. And I'm going to be asking different friends of mine to come on this show as well. And I'm really excited about that because part of the thing that made me the most scared to do this episode and to do this podcast is the idea of coming on here and just talking by myself. Um, but one, it helps because I have producer Caleb here, so I'm just like pretending that we're having a conversation. And honestly, it's not that different because if you're friends with me, I usually talk anyways and don't let anyone else say anything. So this is basically the same. So I love that I was so nervous to do what I literally spend all fucking day doing anyways. But it's different when it's like intentional and I don't have people to like nod and stuff, right? So I I do want to have a good mix here though of bringing on my friends and bantering with them. I want to try to bring people who are part of different stories. If you're watching this, I'm watching my cat's sneaky behavior right now. She will be a guest on this podcast frequently, involuntarily. But yeah, I have friends that have been in these experiences with me that are going to be part of it. And I am really excited for that. And like I said, I'm manifesting that I get some like really cool fucking people on here. Not that my friends aren't cool, they are. But the short of it is we have a long journey ahead of us. I'm really excited about doing this and I'm really excited to talk to you guys about all the bullshit. So, yeah, I don't really know. I was worried about this episode not being long enough, but I think this is really cutting it up for just getting it started. If you guys are unfamiliar with podcasting, I cannot tell you what is going to come with this. I cannot tell you what date you're listening to this. I don't know really what's happening with when it's coming out because that's up to Apple. So, you could be listening to this at the beginning of October, end of October, but either way, soon I will have some wrap up for you. I guess I could talk about this. And I have been on this journey for the month of September where I decided I was doing single September intentionally. I've been single for a year. But I wanted to actually take some time and not be talking to anyone, not be like going home with anyone, and actually work on why I'm constantly attracting basically garbage. So that has kind of been my goal for the month. And I've been doing a lot of that, self work we talked about at the beginning. That is the responsible side. And I'm trying to step a little bit away from the unhinged side for just the month. Don't worry. I have plenty of unhinged stories for you from previously, but I am trying to take all of those things and learn more about myself, and I'll be bringing some of those reflections to you guys as well. So I will have a lot more on that by the time this podcast is rolling because it will be past September. And for now, we are just going to kind of run with it. So let's see. What else did I have for you guys? Well, I think I think that's it. Like I said, stay tuned because what's to come is just full of TikToks and breakups and narcissists and people who aren't circumcised and micropenis and drug addicts and getting the ick and Gemini moons and the way that heartbroken girls drink to basically die when you have PTSD, but you don't get actually any D. Like, there is a lot of things to come, and I don't want you to miss out on it. So, thank you so much for being here. Please check us out on YouTube. Please check me out on all platforms. Leave a review and rating if you're going to stay tuned. And thank you. I know this was super chaotic, but it's going to get better. It's not going to get less chaotic, but it is going to get better. So,